by taxing jurisdictions, meaning counties, cities, townships, and school districts. The second criteria is most taxing jurisdictions, like a school district, must hold a hearing prior to certifying the levy. Next. Next, Susan. One moment. I'm sorry. So this is the summary of our 21-22 property tax levy. In our general fund, we'll have $653,603 that we will potentially be levying for. Community education will be $43,165, and our debt service, which is our mortgage, we will levy for $1,481,794. with a total levy of $2,178,000 or $78,563. So of this levy, I'm going to break down the percentages of what it's based on. 68% of our levy is based on our mortgage payment, which is debt service. 30% is our general levy, and which includes LTFM and local operational referendum and levy dollars. And 2% is all the other levies, which constitutes our community education. Next, please. So I'm sorry that this screen is a little bit hard to read, but this is the preliminary tax impact of the school district taxes payable levy for 2021-22. As you can see, it has gone down a little bit. So property market value based on 100,000, our tax base has gone down $24, preliminarily. 200,000, a residential property will have gone down $68 on your property taxes. 300,000 would be a $105 negative tax. And this is based on what the county sets, and we're based on 3 counties. That's Morrison County, Stearns County, and Benton County. So it's based on their net tax capacity and their referendum market value. So we did have a little decrease in our tax impact. Commercial properties based on $250,000 had an impact decrease of $104. Properties of $500,000 commercial had a tax impact decrease of $216,000. Our agricultural had a tax impact decrease if they were homestead of 31 cents on $3,000 per acre. We'll go to the $5,000 per acre, and they had a decreased tax impact of 52 cents per acre. Non-homestead follows the same suit, and so does seasonal residential. So based on our net tax capacities and our referendum market value, we did see a decrease in our property taxes for preliminary standards for the next levy. Yes. Go on to that. Next. So basic, go back one, please. Okay, so their next component of our levy is our local optional revenue. These are decisions that may affect our property taxes for 21-22. So right now, Royalton School Board proposes the following revenue per pupil unit at $724. And that's reflected in your property tax notice that you received in November. Next. So of that, I'll break that down between aid and levy. So 300 of that is considered now tier 1, and 424 is considered tier 2. 2 years ago, that was switched over to be, there was no voter approval on that. That's all board approval. So when you look at our adjusted pupil units, and this was forecasted at 1,021, we show aid of $308,648 that's associated with the levy of $430,267. So between equalized aid and levy for next year, we'll show that as $738,914. Again, I just want to reiterate that this is aid and levy. So the levy, on the levy piece is $430,000. Next. The next component that I'm going to talk about on our levy for 21-22 is our long-term facilities maintenance. This superseded what the state used to call deferred maintenance and health and safety dollars. So this was passed in 2015, and it allows school districts the opportunity to generate facility maintenance funds. Before this was approved, large school districts could contribute $2.79 a square foot to maintenance dollars, where districts like ours were capped at 58 cents. So we didn't have a lot of dollars to spend on improving our facilities and keeping projects up to date, such as roofs and HVAC and stuff like that. Next. So of this, I just wanted to break down what the 2021 long-term facilities dollars would look like. So when we preliminary levied in September, we're looking at a total of $321,651. That is based on 2021 at $380 per pupil unit. Now this is going to be based a little high because our dollars that we levied for were pupil units were about 4 pupil units over, because I levied before we had our newest pupil units. So what long-term facilities maintenance does, it requires a 10-year facilities plan that that the board has to approve in July and has to be turned into the Commissioner of Education. If we do not have this approved, it's basically just a timeline of when we had projected projects. If we don't have this turned in, we don't get any long-term facilities maintenance. And I will just also reiterate, of this $321,000, we also have debt service dollars in here that we had a bond on. That's part of this money that we're getting to pay back on that bond from levy. That was voter approved. Next. So now we're going to get into the overview, excuse me, of our funds, of our budget for 2021. So the general fund accounts for most of the daily operating expenses of the district, which is about 80% of our revenues, which is textbooks, instructional supplies, insurances, extracurricular, and of course, employee salaries and benefits. And the cost of transporting children is also in the general fund. Food service, obviously, is all expenses for breakfast, lunch, and any catering programs. We do not have any catering programs. Community education are those expenses for educational and recreational programs, which are not part of the regular K-12 and special education program. And those are programs like early childhood family education, our school readiness program, and any recreational programs that we are running in adult basic education. This year it looks a little different because of the restraints that have been put on the district. And last but not least is our debt service, and that is our mortgage payment, anything associated with paying the mortgage on the building. Next. So I'm just giving a synopsis and a breakdown of what our general formula has been for previous years. You can see 2021, we are basically, this is our basic formula. That's not with anything added in. Like if we had decreased enrollment, we would get a little money for having a decreased enrollment. Equity, transition revenue. This is $6,567 per pupil. So you can see that it truly has not kept up with the rate of inflation. We did get 2% and 2% the last biennium. I don't know what we're going to get moving forward. Our legislative season doesn't start until spring, so we probably won't have a new formula allowance number until generally it's June. And this year it could be later. Next. So this is a general overview of all our funds on the revenue side of things. So what I did is I broke down the 1920 actuals. That's where we ended the year, June 30th, 2020. And what I budgeted for 2021. So general revenues, that's all our aid payments, levy payments, any local local dollars go into that general revenue. That I budgeted for $10,085,762. So there's about a $210,000 difference. I will say this year, we did receive some CARES dollars and GEARS dollars from the federal and state side of things. So that did help us a little bit. And that is part of our general fund revenue that has come in. Food service, we will see obviously a decrease. I did project 419,000. However, obviously the longer we stay in distance learning, the more impacted revenue will be. Community education, budgeted for $284,362. That encompasses our school readiness program, our early childhood family ed program, and any recreational programs. That also is going to be probably have an impact the longer we are in distance learning and those programs are not viable. Debt service is automatic from the state, so that's probably the most consistent revenue stream, and that's at $2,086,502. So they go up to 2%. We can have a 5%, 105 levy for 5%, but the state, that's driven directly from the state. Scholarship fund, I anticipate $10,000 in revenue. I'm not sure, it changes every year based on what they solicit for donations. And the student activity is largely impacted this year with no operation of any extracurricular activities and no funding streams for fundraising. So to date, we have received $5,064, and that also is impacted the longer we stay in distance learning. Next. So now I'm going to go over the expenses and all funds, just a general overview of what I budgeted and what our actual June 30th, 2020 numbers were. So in our general fund, I'd see we're going to have an increase that would be $10,117,000 that I budgeted from $9,041. And that also, I will just say that will encompass some of the GEARS and CARES dollars that we received, so they're going to offset each other a little bit. Food service, we're going to see a huge decrease, obviously, in expenses, but we also see a large decrease in revenue also. Community education I'm hoping to see, of course, we see a huge gain in expenses. And that's basically due to salaries, even though we are still running early childhood family ed and preschool, so we are still paying those salaries. Excuse me, so I do see an impact on the expense side there. Debt service is again pretty written in stone by the state, so I projected and budgeted for $2,983,000. $2,023,983,000. Scholarships, I expensed $12,000. That with the board conversation could be more than that. We could expense more. We do have a fund balance to work with. And student activities, expenses are way down. We haven't had any activities that we are running, so expenses are down. Basically, the expenses for this would be some FFA stuff that came out. I do want to say for the 1920 actual budget that shows 128,000. Keep in mind a lot of those expenses, and of course with the revenue side was the trip that was scheduled because they had a lot, mostly in and out. So we did show a lot of revenue, but we also showed the expenses to offset that.
That was a cruise.
Yep. Next. So again, sorry, this is not in a different room. It would look really good. So this is our estimated fund balances that I'm projecting as of June 30th. If everything that we've budgeted is in actuality, we're just going to be pretty close. I'm going to show our fund balance is going to go down for 2021. It'll go down to 1.523 million from 1.549 million, if you guys can read that. So June 30th of 2020, we ended, ended the year with a fund balance of 1.549 million. And I'm projecting that we will dip into our fund balance and end June 2021 of 1.523 million. So it's a little bit of a nip in the savings account. Food service, we will do the same thing. We will have a decreased fund balance. There's no way to circumvent that. And same with community service. I show food service ending with a fund balance of $18,340. Community service fund balance of $173,572. So I'm showing in everything that we are going to have a decreased fund balance. Scholarship, I'm hoping to have decreased fund balance, and that's going to be a conversation with the board at some point. Student activities probably isn't going to do too much this year, so the fund balance may not be impacted much from what I can see. Next. So what I do by law, we're required to break down expenses by program. So this is what I've done for the community and for the board. So I've also indicated that our general fund, we do have different funds, and it's hard, I know it's complicated, but Fund 1 is our general fund. That's by statute. Our scholarship fund and our student activity fund, at the end of the year, they all crosswalk into that general fund, and that's designated by statute. So when I say it's by fund, we are all looking at general fund dollars here. So administration, we have expenses, and these haven't deviated much from last year. The same percentage is close to last year. So administration, 563,000, which is a 5.58% of our expenses are budgeted to administration. District support services is 374,434, and that's like our secretarial, paras, that type of thing. Secretarial, excuse me, mainly. Elementary and secondary education is 4.9 million, and obviously that's our salaries for our teachers. Vocational ed is also some salaries and supplies for vocational ed. Special ed is salaries and supplies at 13%. Instructional support services, 4.74% of the budget is put towards that. Pupil support, which is our transportation, is 7.42% of our expenses. Sites and buildings, which is our custodial and all the supplies that go into that, that's 14% of our budget. Excuse me. And fiscal and fixed costs are 1.96%, and sometimes that's anything that we have subscriptions. That's what I'm going to say. Sorry about that. And then we're going to break down expense by category. So categories is exactly what it says. So of this budget for 2021, $7,626,000 is going to be applied to salaries and fringes, salaries and benefits. Purchase services is going to be 1.198 million. Supplies for the district, which is educational, instructional, or general supplies. And that falls into if we need toilet paper or sanitizers, that's in that category also. That's $735,971. And the equipment, $500,858. And the reason the equipment costs are higher this year is we got some CRF money, which is the Corona Relief Fund from the feds, and the board approved that HVAC project that we have going, and that was $232,000. So that's impact, and then we have iPads and Chromebooks as part of that. So that's why our equipment costs look as high as they do. And dues and assessments, which are the subscriptions, dues, anybody that belongs to an organization, those are dues. That's $72,000. So now we're going to go to the revenue side of things for the 2021 budget. Local revenues, which is any of our levy dollars, that's considered local revenues, any donations, any grants. So of that, by source, revenues is $842,877. So our state revenues, which is our state aid, that is budgeted at $8,699,433. Our federal dollars are based off of federal funds, which is our targeted dollars, which is our Title I dollars. And this year, it's also the CARES money that we're receiving and our GEARS money, and some of our Corona Relief Fund dollars are in there, and that's why it's $537. Normally, in a different year, you would see it at about $140,000, because we're gonna get Title I and Title II dollars that are a federal flow through. But now this year, we did get some CARES relief and Corona relief funds. And then resales, $20,677,000. I have that set at that. We do a lot of resale through concessions, through projects. That could be impacted, obviously, the longer we're distance learning. So that could be one source of revenue that might be overestimated a little bit. So that is my presentation on the property tax levy for 21-22 and 2021 budgeted revenues and expenses for the current year. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
What happens if the food service account goes negative?
It can be in deficit for 2 years. After that, the school general fund is obligated to take it out of deficit spending.
Somehow?
Pardon?
Well, how would you do that? You take it out of
We
your
would-
fund balance or?
Yes, it would come out of fund balance. What we would do is we have to appeal to the commissioner, the commissioner of education, and get a one-time transfer. They let us, we can do that without having that. There's, because of the coronavirus and all this COVID stuff, they are giving us until 2023 to be able to transfer funds from general fund over to like food service to make up if it goes into
There's a
deficit.
real chance of that if we go back in school and have to shut down.
Yeah, there
There's
is
a real
a
chance of that.
serious chance of that. Right now, we're only serving 50 families, bag lunches. It's impacting us severely. And I mean, I have a minimum crew, obviously, in the kitchen, but yeah, we will be looking at possibly transferring some general fund dollars. And it might be some of that extended basic aid that we look at when it's part of that compensatory. They did break some of that off. We may have to appeal to the commissioner to move some of that over to our general fund.
Okay. My question. Go ahead, Noel.
How many citizens are watching this?
I don't know.
What was the number? It's 31, but that doesn't count for the people in this room. So if we subtract what's watching it here, that's probably 27.
Is there any citizens that have a question?
I do want to say one more thing, because I know in our when I talk to the board members in the finance committee, I just want the public to know that the general dollars are obviously for use in the building. It's going to be for education, it's going to be for some salaries, and it's going to be for utilities and transportation. That's basically what this levy is for this $600,000 that we would get on levy dollars. So basically, it's appealing to the utilities, transportation, and it will go to some salaries and benefits also.
What percentage for each of those?
I haven't broken down the percentage, because when we get it all as a lump sum. So, and I could do that, it wouldn't take that much, I can do that for the next one.
Questions?
John,
Oh, got a question over here.
Can I chat a question from the board?
Paul.
just quickly, out-of-state and out-of-state have always, metro and out-of-state have always been treated rather unfairly when it came to reimbursement due to the COVID problems. Do you see that as still happening, or is it something we need to discuss with our legislatures yet again?
Well, I think it's always worth conversation with our legislators. Basically, what the CARES money we received and the GEARS money, and I don't know how else to say it without an acronym, it was based for technology needs for distance learning, so it was more of the computer technology. And the CARES was, we can't supplant, that means we can't have a budget set and then apply this money towards a budget we already have set. It has to be a new issue that's coming in. So those two pieces of revenue that we received were based on free and reduced, based the same parameter that we get title dollars for. So if our free and reduced numbers are down, we aren't going to receive as much money as districts that have a higher number of free and reduced percentage. So, part of it is if it would be on our end, it would be because our free and reduced numbers would be lower than a district that has a high impact on free and reduced. So, but it never hurts to have a conversation with your legislature, because it truly is, we are property tax poor per se. We don't have the industry that other communities do have in order to impact us a different way. So I do think it does warrant saying that we do very well. We are one of the few districts, I think in the 30 percentile, that do not have additional referendum dollars, voter approved referendum dollars. So we are doing all our business on the LOR dollars that we are working. So that, I think we should be proud of that as a school district and a community, that we don't have any additional referendum dollars that are being used to help the district and make it function.
Those are operational levies, and then we're also, I think, 11th from the bottom for revenue from the state per pupil.
Yeah, we are
And that's tremendously low. We should be proud of what we do with what we have.
Yeah, I think we're in the 30.
I have a question from the public, Carrie Wiscala. How did the Department of Ag grant affect the food service budget?
There wasn't a grant. We didn't qualify for a grant.
I'm not sure if that was caught over there. We didn't qualify.
We don't
for the grant.
qualify for a grant from the Department of Agriculture, well, because we don't have an actual summer food program, because we don't have a large population of free and reduced. You have to have over 50% free and reduced to qualify for any summer food program, or you have to be.
I don't think that's what she's talking about.
Well, we didn't get any other grants, that's.
But didn't we offer free lunches for all kids?
Yes, but that was part of USDA and.
That's what she's talking about.
Oh,
I'd
that
be willing
wasn't
to
a
bet.
grant, sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry, that was not a grant. That has not really impacted us because we haven't been feeding very many children. And I was just gonna say with that, we didn't qualify for summer food, so our reimbursement rate was about the same as what we would normally get. If we would have qualified for summer food, it would have impacted us in a more positive way. Their reimbursements are a lot higher.
And that goes back to free and reduced lunch, which you talked about before.
Yeah.
We're at what, about 26% or less than that?
Yes.
Why it's so important people fill out those forms. If everybody in the district fill them out, it would help us tremendously.
Director Gerard, I feel you have a question.
Why do you feel that?
I don't know, I saw you look and I saw you on your computer. I'm like, maybe you have something you want to ask me.
No?
no. Anybody else got a question? All
I
right,
want to, if there are no more questions, I want to thank everybody for attending. I go over a lot of information really fast, so thank you for your patience.
all right. With that, I'm gonna end the meeting at 6:35.